and welcome back to another edition of the Hoops Lounge. My name is Mark Griffin, aka Montreal Mark, on Twitter, Instagram. I'm joined by my partner, Sporting Phil, aka the man of the hour, Phil Boileau. Phil, how you doing, man?
I'm fantastic. This is it's a bit of a weird situation not being able to watch basketball last night. So having some withdrawal syndrome.
Yeah, no basketball on Friday and Saturday. We decided to because of the fans, change things up a little bit. We're going to do 3 separate segments this week. You can find them on our YouTube page, and if you want them all together, you can go on our Blog Talk Radio and get them there. So the topic today. I'm going to throw this at you, Phil. Windows of opportunity. There was a great piece on Grantland by Bill Simmons talking about OKC. Is this the end for them? Serge Ibaka, the calf injury. What were your thoughts about that and their window of opportunity?
Well, to me, when he went down, it was obviously a huge loss. He's a fantastic player. It got to showcase Nick Collison's ability and my man Steven Adams coming in again. I think I've been calling this one all year, but obviously Serge Ibaka is their #1 front court player. And my biggest concern was if they're going to into the finals of the conference, they're going to San Antonio. He was a Spur killer, so he's really hurting. But when we're talking about windows of opportunity, everyone looks at the OKC Thunder, Westbrook, Durant, Ibaka. They're young, but they've also been not winning rings for a few years together.
Westbrook Bill Simmons said they've been together, Westbrook and Kevin, for 6 seasons now. That's a long time for a young core together.
Exactly, and if they're not winning, yes, they're maturing as players, they're getting better, but it's to a certain level, right? You have to go over that hump. It'll be interesting to see if they don't win. Last year was with Westbrook, but I think they can get past this Ibaka bit. I think they have enough depth. I think Durant can play some 4, Caron Butler some small ball. But the window, I think the last resort before they blow it up, because they do have all these guys on contract for a few more years, I think Scott Brooks gets the axe after this year.
I do agree with you there.
Because he's the chess master. He has to be able to make this work. And yes, it's a tough game trying to meld the egos of one Russell Westbrook and, Kevin Durant, but I think they're going to have to make that choice of either split up Westbrook and Durant or try with another coach. But I think, honestly, they can't keep doing this because you have to eventually get there. They're too good, and there's too much talent not to close the deal. So I think the first one to fall, unfortunately, is Mr. Brooks, and I think he knows it. I think that's why you see him quite serious in these postseasons, and although I think, unfortunately, his thing he's going to be known for the most is sticking with Kendrick Perkins when the rest of the league said not to.
Well, this game of basketball is a game of inches, and as Simmons said in the article, things can go so many different ways. A missed shot, a lottery pick not coming through, a trade going bad, an injury. And something that really stood out to me is our friend Dwight Walton said, the narrative of teams can change in an instant. And speaking about the San Antonio Spurs and the Miami Heat, if Ray Allen's shot doesn't go in, if Kawhi Leonard doesn't make those free throws, the narratives can change. Tim Duncan could now be seen as the player of his generation, or maybe LeBron James is going off, leaving Miami. What were your thoughts? Obviously it's a what if, and you're a what if guy yourself. What are your thoughts on the defining moments of that series, changing it for these 2 franchises and these 2 men?
Well, Tim Duncan has done enough in his career that he's still going to be in the contention for #1 power forward of all time. If you consider him a power forward, he's more of a center at this point of his career. But I think it would change things. It would change things more for Miami than San Antonio, I feel, because as you said, I think Miami would have been a real spot to lose some of their stars or forced to change an idea. Whereas if they just keep rolling, players aren't going to walk away from a team that's winning rings. But San Antonio, I think it would go from I think the franchise is still on a high level, but I think it would have changed it from maybe extending Tim's career a bit, but I think more it would have put Tim into that conversation because 5 rings really puts you into a high level of company.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Manu may have just retired last season. Just said, "I'm done. We've got that other title. I'm done." I think that really was the turning point for him. He's like, you know what, I got to come back. I got to settle business, for him. And I think that's a big thing for LeBron and his legacy. He wants to get these three-peats. He wants to say that I don't have to change cities. I don't have to have these key players around me to get more rings. So I think that's an important thing for him to say, I can do this in Miami.
Although it's interesting because speaking of the subject of windows of opportunity, I mean, if Miami does not come through with the championship this year, there's going to be a lot of speculation, and rightfully so, with LeBron James possibly going to other places. I mean, there's openings with Chicago, some other teams, and so he might see some brighter future. Because if they lose, I feel them, like OKC, are their own worst enemy. I mean, has Wade regressed to a point where he's no longer a superstar over a 7-game series? Like, yes, he'll come up here and there with 30, 40 points, but to be consistent in the playoffs, you need to put up at least 20, 25 the whole way through. So he may not see the future in that team. I mean, let's not forget Chris Bosh, 30 years old, Dwayne Wade, 32, 33. These guys aren't spring chickens. Like, they're both on kind of the wrong side of their primes. And same with LeBron James. I mean, people talk about him like he's a big kid, but the guy's 30 years old at this point. He's born in '84. Let's not forget about this. So he's gonna want to go for rings, and I think San Antonio, again, if they don't win, I think there's a bit of a pull on people like Tim Duncan and such to not walk away. But I think if San Antonio wins, we're gonna see a drastically different team next year, and that's funny because if you have a finals where OKC loses to San Antonio in the semis, you could see drastic changes there. And if San Antonio goes to beat Miami, then you could see drastic changes in San Antonio and Miami. So if the Spurs, like our friend Dwight Walton kind of alluded to, can go all the way, we could see 3 of the top contenders in the whole NBA having drastic facelifts after this season.
And it would be nice to see Timmy and Manu kind of ride off into the sunset. So this is the end of our first segment. Like I said, our little window of opportunities ended here, but I love these what-ifs and how the league goes this way and that way based on a bucket, an injury, anything else. Just like life, it's always a mystery and always a beautiful thing to watch. So thank you, Phil, for being on, and see you soon in the lounge.